All right. Hello and welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. The 290th day of the year, and it is going fast. The third of 5 Wednesdays this month, and National Bosses Day. So be extra nice to your boss today. Maybe bring a donut or a sandwich or something. And if you are the boss, kudos to you. Today is your day. If you are a cat person, today is also Global Cat Day. So enjoy that. Tonight marks 1 week already since Hurricane Milton made landfall near Siesta Key along Florida's west coast late last Wednesday night. Many people across the state of Florida still picking up the pieces. Some are homeless. 135 miles away from Siesta Key here in Orlando, the front road into my community remains closed, completely flooded, as do many other roads all around the state. Yesterday, Governor DeSantis announced the arrest of the guy that left his dog chained to a fence on the side of the highway in the hurricane. The rescue of the dog by a highway patrol trooper went viral. You've probably seen that or heard about it, right? The guy charged with animal cruelty said he couldn't take the dog with him when he evacuated, and he hoped that if he left it there, someone would rescue it. Well, at least that is what happened. Just north of Florida, of course, is the state of Georgia, which was impacted by Hurricane Helene a few weeks ago. Yesterday, former President Donald Trump campaigned in Atlanta, Georgia.
Early mail-in voting in your state is now underway, and early in-person is underway. But I'll tell you what, I'm hearing very good things.
Early voting in Georgia started yesterday and broke records. According to ABC and NBC News, more than 300,000 people voted in person in the Peach State yesterday, more than double the number of 2020.
3 weeks from tonight, the people of Georgia are going to end Kamala Harris's reign of failure.
Then last night, a big ruling in Georgia. The Fulton County Superior Court judge wrote that the hand count rule is too much, too late, after the state election board passed a rule in September requiring that 3 poll workers each individually count the paper ballots by hand after the polls close. Judge McBurney blocked the enforcement of the hand counting while he considers the merits of the case, saying anything that adds uncertainty and disorder to the electoral process disserves the public. He did credit the state board for the rule, thinks it's a good rule, but doesn't like the timing of it. Meanwhile, President Biden was campaigning for Kamala Harris in Philadelphia last night and had some strong words for his old nemesis, Donald Trump.
Trump hides all his racism, used to, but now it's just out front. He has the same ideas on race as the 1930s. Trump's ideas in the economy are from the 20s. Trump's idea in women are from the 50s.
Wow. The vice president is campaigning with a group of disgruntled Republicans in Pennsylvania today near Philadelphia. She is scheduled to be in Atlanta this weekend. Donald Trump's next rally is scheduled for Friday in Detroit, but he is making stops literally everywhere, including sports shows.
You're jumping all over the place.
Yeah, no.
Where do you find time to rest?
I really don't find too much time to rest. She rests. Kamala rests. In fact, she's almost resting all the time. She does very little. She takes, days off, and I'm not knocking that. They had a little bit of a honeymoon period, and now she's falling badly because she's been doing interviews. She's falling because she's doing interviews, and the interviews have not been good. I'm an athlete, too. I was always good at sports. I was always really good golfer, good baseball player, good everything. I love sports. I always love sports. And it's sort of a microcosm of life, okay? It's the great athletes have something very special. And it's true like that in life. You have people, some people win, some people don't win.
Tonight's red hot video, that's President Trump effortlessly hitting yet another podcast, this time with Barstool Sports, talking about sports and his sports background and so on, in the final sprint of the campaign. And he may be doing another big one real soon.
I think Joe Rogan has to have you on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
Oh, sure I would.
I think Joe, besides us, Joe's
I think I'm doing it, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you are going to do Joe Rogan?
Yeah, I am.
Of course, the Harris campaign is desperately trying to copy President Trump again, as they have so many times before. The Reuters news agency now reporting that Kamala is at least considering doing an interview with Joe Rogan's podcast as well. And there is no doubt that we've got to go to Matthew Foldy on this one, because he's the Joe Rogan expert when it comes to all these matters. And at long last, President Trump says he's going to do the Joe Rogan podcast, and naturally, Kamala will follow.
Well, let me just make something very clear from the get-go. Joe Rogan is not a diehard Trump sycophant. I'm currently on episode 666, coincidentally, which was shortly after Trump announced his presidency in 2015, and Joe Rogan was actually attacking his rhetoric on illegal immigration in 2020. Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders voter. Now, fast forward, of course, COVID radicalized him. He left California for Texas. He's definitely more on the right. He's very aligned with RFK Jr. type people. And so there's certainly an opportunity for Trump to bring him into the fold. But this is not, some easy interview. Right now, the risk for Kamala Harris, of course, is that Joe Rogan will ask her questions she can't answer. I think he'd press her a lot on her record on drugs in particular, for example. That's something that he feels very strongly about. And something that's important to remember, I think, big picture for the people who aren't Joe Rogan fans like I am, is that there was a coordinated assault on Joe Rogan, which was what actually made me listen to his podcast to begin with, where Spotify was basically bullied into removing dozens of his episodes for no reason whatsoever. And now, all of a sudden, it's totally fine for Kamala Harris to go on his podcast just because he can potentially help her win the election by appealing to young men. And I think when you watch the media attack someone randomly, you should understand they're probably lying to you. The question is why.
And Virginia, Trump and J.D. Vance are doing interviews all over the place, and more than twice as many as the Harris ticket, right? And Joe Rogan's a big one, right?
Joe Rogan is the biggest interview, I think, because not only are you going to have literally probably millions of people who watch that 3-hour interview like only Joe Rogan can do and keep it interesting the entire time. As a podcaster at the Daily Signal, I so respect Joe Rogan's ability to keep a long-form interview interesting. But you're going to have so many clips go viral from that interview, and that's going to be the most consumed content. So, I mean, if Trump does it, Harris has to do it. I don't think she has a choice. She has to do Rogan just because of that publicity. Yeah. It's such a powerful opportunity.
Well, I tweeted out to Joe Rogan, and I said that he should interview Matthew Foldy before even interviewing Kamala Harris.
It will be my honor. Mr. Rogan, I accept the offer you have given me.
Get him on. He's your biggest fan. But look, I do think it would hurt Harris if she were to do the interview. If I'd be her campaign advisor, I'd advise her against it. Any of these long-form interviews, even these short-form interviews, they have not served, it's not been favorable towards Kamala. Kamala has messed up every single major interview, and I think that's been very problematic for her.
Former White House Director of Strategic Communications, Mercedes Schlapp, on The Right Squad with host Chris Plante, Matt Foldy, and the rest of The Right Squad. That's weeknights at 10 o'clock Eastern on NEWSMAX. Check it out. Pretty cool show. Former Deputy Assistant to President Trump, Sebastian Gorka, continues the conversation.
Turn the page, a new way forward. She's been vice president for the last 4 years. Does she actually think that this narrative, turning the page, makes any sense to voters?
Well, to those voters who don't know that she is the vice president, yes. And on top of that, I mean, who writes these scripts? We know she can't function extemporaneously. If she doesn't have text and teleprompter, it's a complete, utter disaster. But who's putting the text in the teleprompter that turn the page, or from the DNC that we're starting a new chapter? She just gave 2 interviews where she was asked, what would you do differently from the last 4 years of your time in the White House? And then she paused as if she wasn't prepared for that question, which in and of itself is stunning. And she said, nothing. Yeah. So what exactly are you turning the page on, Kamala, if you're going to give us more inflation, more illegals, more wars across the world? This is how bad her campaign is, and that's why it's cratering, as we see.
Yeah, I don't think she knows what turning the page even means. You have to wonder what's going on behind the scenes with their communications team. I mean, it's got to be a mess. But the latest Quinnipiac poll currently has Harris with a 3-point lead over President Trump. But things are trending in the right direction for the former president. The latest Emerson poll has Trump leading by 1 point in Pennsylvania. So obviously, we all know it's a tight race. We see all these different polls come out. How does President Trump move the needle over the next 3 weeks to make sure he not only wins Pennsylvania, but these other states?
Great question. It goes back to his first tweet back on X, the day he did that incredible 2-hour, it wasn't even an interview, it was like this completely blue sky 2-hour discussion with Elon Musk. If you go back to that, listen to the discussion, fascinating in and of itself. I can't wait for the Joe Rogan interview, which is meant to be imminent with President Trump. But that day, before the discussion with Elon, the spaces, the Twitter spaces, President Trump reposted a phrase from the Reagan campaign. And it's everything you need to know in one sentence. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? I mean, for those who live in the real world, those who aren't part of the bi-coastal elite, who aren't affected by the price of gas or inflation, the people who live in the real world, working Americans, if you want gas not to triple in price, but to quadruple in price, if you want more wars around the world, if 20 million illegals weren't enough for you, vote for Kamala Trump. If you want, look, the thing about President Trump, that the left will never understand. I worked for him in the White House. I can attest to this. I'll swear on a stack of Bibles. President Trump wants you as an American, irrespective of what political identity you have, to prosper and to be safe. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, independent, he wants your family not to be at the mercy of, Tren de Aragua. And he wants the economy to be the biggest it's ever been, as it was when we were in the White House.
Yeah.
That's the only thing President Trump has to do, is to get that message of prosperity and safety to those who are on the fence.
Imagine that, prosperity and safety. I think that's something everyone can agree that we all want.
NEWSMAX host Allison Maloney with Sebastian Gorka, who I believe just celebrated his 30th wedding anniversary. So congrats, Sebastian. And don't forget about his show, The Gorka Reality Check, Sunday night on NEWSMAX. In fact, the whole Sunday lineup on NEWSMAX is incredible. With Huckabee, Nancy Brinker, Pastor Alan Jackson, documentaries. Go to NewsMaxTV.com. Check out the Sunday lineup. There's a lot of great programming on Sunday. Well, both Saturday and Sunday, in fact. And you can check out the lineup for every single day of shows on NewsMax and N2 there at NewsMaxTV.com. All right, let's shift gears a bit to legal matters with Greta Van Susteren and Congressman Jim Jordan, chair of the House Judiciary Committee.
Nathan Wade was in Washington today. You remember him. Wade was, or maybe still is, the boyfriend of Fulton County DA Fani Willis. He is also the former special prosecutor in former President Donald Trump's Georgia election case. Despite an office with assistant DAs, Willis had hired Wade. He is now the former special prosecutor because Wade had to step down. This after Wade and Willis's love affair became public, and the judge issued an order saying that one of them, Wade or Willis, had to withdraw from the case. Wade chose to withdraw. His withdrawal allowed Willis to stay on the case, and today Wade appeared for a deposition in front of the House Judiciary Committee. The deposition was closed to the press, but 4 days ago, on October 11th, and before today's deposition of Wade, DA Willis sent 2 separate letters. The first letter was addressed to Wade. It reads in part, quote, I write to remind you of your continuing obligation not to disclose any confidential information related to ongoing criminal matters on which you worked while you were a special counsel district attorney, including information that is protected from disclosure by grand jury secrecy rules or applicable legal privileges held by the office. To that end, this letter should serve as a formal notice that Fulton County DA is asserting all applicable legal protections and privileges over the information you obtained as a result as special counsel to this office, end quote. Now, the second letter was addressed to Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. That letter reads in part, quote, I'm concerned that your demand for Mr. Wade's testimony would force him to improperly divulge confidential information that is protected by privileges held by the Fulton County District Attorney's Office and demands that Mr. Wade violate the State Bar of Georgia rules that govern conduct of attorneys. In addition, questions about the substance of Mr. Wade's work in the case would implicate information that is protected by the deliberative process privilege, attorney-client privilege, excuse me, and work product privilege, among others, end quote. Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan joins me. Good evening, sir.
Good to be with you, Greta. Thanks for having me.
Why did you want to speak to him?
Because he's part of this lawfare operation in Atlanta, Georgia, and Fulton County going after President Trump, much like Alvin Bragg did in New York. And we spoke with people in the in the Alvin Bragg, Mr. Pomerantz. We spoke with him. We had to subpoena him, and the judge ruled. They took it to court, and the judge ruled in our favor, and he came and testified. We want to know what's going on because, again, remember, from the Fulton County, the disqualification procedures or proceedings in Fulton County, we learned that Nathan Wade had billed for multiple hours meeting with the January 6th committee, billed for multiple hours meeting with the White House, billed an 8-hour Zoom call with other jurisdictions involved in the investigation that they're undertaking down there in Fulton County. So that's stuff that there's no privilege there. We want to know, okay, you billed for this. Who did you meet? What did you talk to him about? Who were the key people? How long? How many meetings? Where did they take place? Those are the kind of things that we would like to ask. Now, I can't say whether we asked those or not, but those are just the kind of things we know from the Fulton County disqualification proceedings that we'd like to get information on when you think about this target. Remember, Greta, you know this as a lawyer. Prosecutors are supposed to safeguard the public and go after people who've done something wrong. Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, both campaigned on going after their political opposition. Both campaigned on going after President Trump. That's not supposed to be how it's done.
Okay, so this is done behind closed doors today. It was a deposition. As I understand the rules, tell me if I'm wrong, is that it's secret until a transcript is released. Those are the rules in Congress. So at some point we'll see what was asked and how he answered, right?
Exactly. And my goal is to get that out as quickly as possible. I'd like to do it. I'd like to do it by next week. But we have to, work with a minority, the Democrats on the committee. We have to work with House counsel. And, of course, we have to work with Nathan Wade and his counsel, give them a chance to review it. But my goal is to get that out as soon as possible so that people can see what we asked and how he responded.
House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan on the committee's investigation into Fonnie Willis, who, of course, handed down a series of indictments against former President Trump and more than a dozen of his allies, including some of his attorneys.
Have you learned anything new that you didn't suspect? Just looking back on this whole investigation you've been doing.
Well, we've learned that this is frightening what the left is up to. I mean, whether it's turning agencies against their political opponents, whether it's using the federal government, working with big tech to censor your political opponents. I mean, I just gave a speech earlier today, and I said to the audience on the censorship issue, did you ever think you would see Donald Trump, Elon Musk, RFK Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard on the same team? They're on the same team because the left is now the party of censorship. They're trying to restrict our First Amendment liberties. And so I like to think a lot of, in fact, I called RFK Jr. up a few weeks ago when he endorsed President Trump. And we talked about this because I had him in as a witness. And Greta, I will tell you this, when I had him in as a witness a year ago, we took some heat for that. They're like, what is Jordan inviting a Democrat running for president on the, what's he inviting him as a witness? But I invited him in as well as Tulsi Gabbard, Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberger, all these former Democrats invited him in because they care about free speech rights. And they came in and did a great job. And by the way, RFK Jr. said something in that hearing that stuck with me. And he said it when he endorsed President Trump. He said, when you look at history, it is never the good guys who are for censorship. It is always the bad guys. So we've done a number of reports on that subject and a host of others that we like to think has made a difference in how this new coalition is coming together in support of protecting our liberties. And of course, President Trump is leading the charge.
Again, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, chair of the House Judiciary Committee, on the record with Greta Van Susteren. Yesterday, I said we are 3 weeks away from Election Day, and honestly, it can't go fast enough for me, right? Later in the day, Greta posted a similar comment on X, like, can't we just vote tomorrow? I've had enough. How can anybody possibly be undecided? That was from Greta, and I second the motion. Or the notion. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee, was campaigning in the key state of Pennsylvania yesterday, taking part in a Moms for America town hall.
For a lot of voters who are still on the fence, I'd say the very same thing they're saying about Trump now, they said in 2015 and 2016. That's right. And I actually think that we're going to have an even bigger and even better presidential term because we've got, frankly, so many more big problems to solve now.
The Democratic vice presidential nominee, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, was also in Pennsylvania yesterday. He spoke at an event at Acrisure Stadium, home of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
This might be the first time in modern American history that both members of the Democratic ticket are gun owners. And the Republican nominee can't pass a background check to own a gun.
And listen to how the crowd wildly cheers that, like they do when she says, "Turn the page, turn the page." That's what scares me. Well, he may own a gun, as many of the folks there in Pittsburgh do, but it's apparent from that hunting video that he doesn't often use it. And let's wrap it up with this segment from Tuesday's edition of National Report with Emma Reckenberg.
So the latest news out of the Trump camp is that the former president has not played golf since his second assassination attempt on him at this golf club in Florida. ABC is reporting he won't play again until a new security plan is in place. There have been calls by Team Trump to increase security, including the assistance of military aircraft. Joe, do you think that's necessary? I mean, how dangerous is it for the former president to be out on the campaign trail?
Well, I think it's extremely dangerous. I mean, keep in mind, we are the richest, most powerful country in the world. And it boggles the mind that we are not doing everything in our power to protect Donald Trump or any presidential candidate for that matter. I mean, keep in mind, there has been 3 assassination attempts, the latest in Riverside where they stopped a man armed with multiple weapons and fake IDs. We have a credible threat from Iran on the president's life. So it's all hands on deck to protect him. And if you think that there's not going to be copycats, I mean, these dirtbags are just begging for attention to go after Donald Trump because of the rhetoric against him. I mean, the underlying cause that's pushing all of this is we have an entire group of people in this country who are calling Donald Trump a threat to democracy, a Nazi, Hitler, a threat to our country and our very existence. So if you think that's not going to have an effect on people who are already unhinged, you're either insane or delusional.
That's Fraternal Order of Police National Vice President Joe Gamaldi. On Wall Street, stocks opened in the green, although slightly green. Bank earnings and AI stocks remained the big focus. And a big headline from the business page, Amazon and its AWS, that's Amazon Web Services, said it will invest $500 million, $500 million in nuclear energy with Dominion Energy of Virginia. Sounds like a pretty good deal for Dominion Energy. And the MLB playoffs continued today with Game 3 of the NLCS between the New York Mets and the LA Dodgers. That series tied up at 1 game apiece. If you missed it last night, the Yankees beat Cleveland to take a 2-game lead in the ALCS. Keep up with all of the news all day and night on Newsmax at newsmax.com, and make sure you're streaming Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows, hosts, and guests. Newsmaxplus.com is where you can get signed up if you're not already signed up. Get Rob Schmidt tonight, Greg Kelly reports, Carl Higby's Frontline, Bianca De La Garza on Newsline, Chris Salcedo, Wake Up America, Ed Henry with fantastic analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, political analyst Mark Halpern, Carrie Lake, Hogan Gidley, Judge Napolitano, and many, many others. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for stopping by the NEWSMAX Daily. Keep sharing it with your friends and family. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're the boss, today is your day. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the NEWSMAX app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is